words of Sri Aurobindo from the book The Mother, Part 2, Letters on the Mother by Our Lord, Chapter 9, The Mother and the Working of the Ashram. Topic: The Mother and the Ashram's Discipline, page 233. Sri Aurobindo says, the mother has never objected to people who cannot pay residing or visiting the ashram without paying. She expects payment only from visitors who can pay. She did object strongly to the action of some rich visitors on one occasion who came here, spent money lavishly on purchases, etc., and went off without giving anything to the ashram or even the smallest offering to the mother. That is all. Date 21st October 1943. Next topic: two foundations of the ashram's material life. Sri Aurobindo says, what our vital being seems to have kept all along is the bargain or the mess attitude in these matters. One gives some kind of commodity which he calls devotion or surrender, and in return the mother is under obligation to supply satisfaction for all demands and desires, spiritual, mental, vital, physical. And if she falls short in her task, she has broken her contract. The ashram is a sort of communal hotel or mess. The mother is the hotel keeper or mess manager. One gives what one can or chooses to give, or it may be nothing at all except the foresaid commodity. In return, the palate, the stomach, and the physical demands have to be satisfied to be full. If not, one has every right to keep one's money and to abuse the defaulting hotel keeper or mess manager. This attitude has nothing whatever to do with the sadhana or yoga, and I absolutely repudiate the right of anyone to impose it as a basis for my work or for the life of the ashram. There are only two possible foundations for the material life here. One is that one is a member of an ashram founded on the principle of self-giving and surrender. One belongs to the divine, and all one has belongs to the divine. In giving, one gives not what is one's own, but what already belongs to the divine. There is no question of payment or return, no bargain, no room for demand and desire. The mother is in sole charge and arranges things as best as they can be arranged within the means at her disposal and the capacities of her instruments. She is under no obligation to act according to the mental standards or vital desires and claims of the sadhaks. She is not obliged to use a democratic equality in her dealings with them. She is free to deal with each according to what she sees to be his true need or what is best for him in his spiritual progress. No one can be her judge or impose on her his own rule and standard. She alone can make rules, and she can depart from them too if she thinks fit, but no one can demand that she shall do so. Personal demands and desires cannot be imposed on her. If anyone has what he finds to be a real need or a suggestion to make, which is within the province assigned to him, he can do so. But if she gives no sanction, he must remain satisfied and drop the matter. This is the spiritual discipline of which the one who represents or embodies the divine truth is the sinner. Either she is that, and all this is the plain common sense of the matter, or she is not. And then no one need stay here. Each can go his own way, and there is no ashram and no yoga. If, on the other hand, one is not ready to be a member of the ashram or bear the discipline and is still admitted to some place in the yoga, he remains apart, meets his own expenses. There is no discipline for him on the material plane, except the rules necessary for the safety of the work. There is no material responsibility for the mother. Date 11th April 19. Next topic, the mother's principle of action and waste. Sri Aurobindo says, I did not consider it necessary to say anything about the question of waste beyond assuring you that the undertaking of useless and unnecessary work only in order to keep the men employed was no part of the mother's principle of action. The mother did not know to what pipe you referred and had no time or inclination to make enquiries about it. It is quite true that so long at least as the sadhaks are not siddha yogis, self-control is the law. They have to learn to refrain from indulgence of excess in any direction, the provision made for them being ample for a sadhak and much more than is allowed elsewhere, and from negligence, greed, or the pursuit of individual fancy. When they do these things, the mother does not intervene at every moment to check them. A standard has been set, they have been warned against waste, a framework has been created. For the rest, they are expected to learn and grow out of their weakness by their own consciousness and will, with the mother's inner force to aid them. In the organization of work, they are formerly a formidable waste due to the workers and sadhaks following their own fancy almost entirely without respect for the mother's will. That was largely checked by reorganization. But waste to a certain extent continues and is almost inevitable so long as the sadhaks and workers are imperfect in their will and consciousness, do not follow in spirit or detail the mother's recommendations or think themselves wiser than herself and make undue room for their independent ideas. Here too, the mother does not always insist. She watches and observes, intervenes outwardly more than in the individual lives of the sadhaks, but still leaves room for them to grow by consciousness and experience and the lesson of their own mistakes, and often employs an inner in preference to an outer pressure. In these matters, she must exercise her own judgment and vision. There is no use in anybody offering his approval or censure, for she works from a different center of vision than theirs, and they have not a superior light by which they can judge or guide her. As regards waste, I must point out that in our view, free expenditure is not always waste. To have a higher standard than is current in this very tamasic and backward place is not necessarily waste. In matters of building and maintenance of buildings, as in others of the same order, the mother has from the beginning set up a standard which is not that current here. The usual system being to use cheapest possible materials, cheapest labor, and to disregard appearance, allowing things to be shabby or making only patchwork to keep them up. I suppose thrifty minds would consider the local principle to be sound and a higher standard to be waste. If the higher standard has been kept, it is not for glory of anyone, the ashram or the mother. The principle of glory being foreign to yoga, but from another point of view which is not mental, can only be fully appreciated when the consciousness is capable of understanding the vision of things which the mother started her work. I do not consider it useful to write about that now. The general misunderstanding in these subjects can only disappear when the sadhaks have got rid of the ordinary mind and vital and are able to look at things from the same vision level as that from which the conception of yoga and the work took its rise. For the same reason, I refuse to answer criticisms, attacks, and questionings directed against the mother. Whether in work or in yoga, the mother acts not from the mind or from the level of consciousness from which these criticisms arise, but from quite another vision and consciousness. It is perfectly useless, therefore, and is inconsistent with the position she ought to occupy to accept the ordinary mind and consciousness as judge and tribunal and allow her to appear before it and defend her. Such a procedure is itself illogical and inconsequent and can lead nowhere. It can only create or prolong a false atmosphere wholly inimical to success in the sadhana. For that reason, if these doubts are raised, I no longer answer them or answer in such a way to discourage a repetition of any such challenge. If people want to understand why the mother does things, let them get into the same inner consciousness from which she sees and acts. As to what she is, that also can only be seen either with the eye of faith or of a deeper vision. That too is the reason why we keep here people who have not yet acquired the necessary faith or vision. We leave them to acquire it from within, as they will do if there is a will of sadhana is sincere. I have written at length on this question once for all. I do not propose to repeat it. People no longer expect it from me, even those who did expect it formerly had ceased to do so. On other questions, so far as they are not connected or mixed up with these things, I may answer hereafter as I find time. Date 26th December 1936. Sri Aurobindo says, the mother does not provide the sadhaks with comforts because she thinks that the desires, fancies, likings, preferences should be satisfied. In yoga, people have to overcome these things. In any other ashram, they would not get 1/10 of what they get here. They would have to put up with all possible discomforts, privations, hard and rigorous austerities, and if they have complained, they would be told that they were not fit for yoga. If there is a different rule here, it is not because the desires have to be indulged, but because they have to be overcome in the presence of objects of desire and not in their absence. The first rule of yoga is that the sadhak must be content with what comes to him, much or little. If things are there, he must be able to use them without attachment or desire. If they are not, he must be indifferent to their absence. Date 7th Jan 1937.